Welcome to Brainstorm 9000.
Greetings, brains of the internet, and welcome to Brainstorm 9000, the podcast where we talk about your brain and also other things sometimes.
Yes, and if you are not the brains and you are not on the internet, still welcome.
Yes.
Maybe you are the gut
Yes.
who is listening to me, Dr. Schultz. I'm kind of like a real doctor. I'm a psychiatrist. Some people would argue, but I'm an MD. And right across from me, I have a person who will lovingly call Master McMaster.
Master.
The name she invented herself because she has master's degree in philosophy, and her name is Jane McMaster.
I didn't invent it. Society foisted this upon me. I can't help it.
Yeah, but the nickname Master McMaster, that's your idea. So let's come to the very gut of our program today.
Good one.
We are going to talk about the gut-brain connection.
Yes, because lately everyone's calling the gut the second brain. So,
Yeah. Of course, it's significantly smaller than the main brain, and we'll talk about it in a second, and hopefully we are not the dinosaurs. Allegedly, some of them had two brains. So what did you have for breakfast today, Master McMaster?
I had half a Soylent and a coffee.
The Soylent is the GMO, meaning genetically altered drink, right?
Soylent is sustainable plant-based liquid food.
Right, which of course a lot of experts who talk about the gut would be very unhappy about. And what else did you have? Soylent and what else?
Coffee.
Okay, sounds pretty exciting.
Wait, what did you have for breakfast?
I had, as always, first a full cup of hot water.
Oh.
And then in about half an hour, I ate half of a papaya.
Oh.
Because despite of my particular relationship with the gut-brain idea, I still maintain a pretty healthy food habit, probably because of many years of practicing yoga on and off throughout my entire life. But,
Yeah.
so what do you know, Master McMaster, about the brain-gut or gut-brain connection?
I know a bit just from prowling around the main sources.
Which would be a pizza place, for example, because when you eat pizza, it makes you happy. Seriously. Makes you feel good.
Yeah, I mean, most of my knowledge about the brain-gut connection comes from my extensive experience indulging in pizza and cheese and bread and then other combinations of those
So
things.
I've got news for you, which I guess I brought to the world of the brain of the internet and some other brains that listen to us. After we eat a combination of cheese and bread, or just pizza, our stomach, in the process of digestion, our gut produce two, not one, two substances that go to our brain and mimic for the brain beta endorphins. So they make us feel happy.
Ah, see, that's why I don't need to exercise to get those beta endorphins.
Oh, of course. I also have to tell you, and this is basically a fact, that the most popular food item requested by clients of nursing homes is a grilled cheese sandwich.
Well, those are excellent. I can't argue with that.
Right. Another question. Have you ever had a drink in your life, Master McMaster?
An alcoholic drink?
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
I have.
So it's kind of weird, right? You pour something in your mouth, it goes through your stomach to your gut, and all of a sudden you feel a buzz.
Yes, it's wonderful.
So-
In fact, it's hard for me to eat pizza without having just
Right.
even a little bit of wine.
So I'm just explaining to people that it's kind of like old news. We read in the news and on the internet that it's a brand new concept developed mostly in the last decade. I mean, it was marketed to us relatively recently, and I'm not trying to be critical here. It's a good idea that it's been discussed because there is some truth to it. But people looked into this in a holistic way, even in the 19th century and certainly in the 20th century. And then it kind of faded away, especially with the development of a very mechanistic approach to the human body.
Mm-hmm.
This mechanistic approach actually translates into the brain function because you and I and everybody else talk about prefrontal cortex doing blah, and then motor cortex doing blah blah, and then hippocampus doing something else. And my favorite amygdala, this little teeny tiny thing, right, that is instrumental into making us fearful and anxious. But it's kind of clear that our body functions as a unit, right? Everything is connected and everything depends on each other. And yes, of course, you can still feel like a human being if somebody chops off your legs or your arms, but you don't feel the same way. And certainly our brain requires energy.
Yes.
It consumes 20% of energy produced by our body.
Yes.
Another 20 is consumed by our muscles, by the way. So it needs food.
Which is why I feed it excessively. That's healthy, right? Because the more energy, the better.
Well, of course you are joking. So probably this topic about the gut-brain, as we call it in medicine, axis, AXIS, not like an X that you kill people
No,
with.
like the axis of evil. We've been over this.
Well, but yeah. So there is a connection. And the buzzwords right now that a lot of people discuss are the microbiome,
Yes, I have heard this.
psychobiotics,
I've heard this as well.
and my favorite, in quotes, the leaky gut.
Ah.
So is your gut leaking?
I hope not. That sounds super gross.
So where does your knowledge end about this axis of good?
It doesn't extend that far. Can we go over those key words you just mentioned? What do those key words mean exactly? Because I've heard of them, but...
So the microbiome refers to the population of bacteria in our body, mostly in our gut.
Is that the flora?
And fauna. Yeah, so flora are people who... So flora refers usually to live organisms that are kind of animal-like. That includes bacteria. And fauna refers to the plants, which a lot of people claim are also alive and have feelings. So you can read in different resources about the numbers of bacteria that occupies our gut. I have to tell you, I personally cannot tell you the exact number right away, but I read that it's a multi-billion, as they say, community of microorganisms, which include bacteria, protozoa, and viruses. So if you want to, at the end, I can explain the difference. So
I just looked it up on the interwebs for our brains of the internet, and according to Wikipedia, our favorite source,
Right.
the human microbiome includes about 100 trillion bacterial cells.
listen, anybody's guess is as good as this one. So it's about, they say, 3 to 6 pounds worth of microorganisms in our gastrointestinal, which they say GI, right? Tract.
See, I always got confused when people would abbreviate them to like the GI tract because I'm used to seeing GI like the GI Bill, like General Infantry.
Right. So GI is gastrointestinal, but gastrointestinal is kind of not enough because digestion begins, some would say, in our mouth. And I'm going to say, from my brain technology point of view and just common sense, our digestion begins from the moment we start thinking about food.
Really?
Which makes us very different, let's say, from dogs. Pavlov was able to receive a Nobel Prize for his research actually in digestion, right? Not for the Pavlovian dog, so to speak, right? Because dogs have this unique quality. Unless the food is in front of them, they do not salivate. So when you see a dog running around with its tongue out, producing what you think is saliva, actually the dog is sweating at this moment. They sweat through their tongue. So
they're not drooling?
drooling, yeah. So we begin to drool even if we think about food, right?
That's true.
And of course, our saliva is one of the juices that participates in digesting food. So it's a good idea to chew, not only to make your food be presented to your stomach in smaller particles, right? But also to enrich it with all the digestive enzymes that need to begin the process. I'm not going to give a lecture on digestion, it's too long. Right, so GI tract begins in the mouth, and I say it begins in the brain, right? In your eyes, in your ears, in your thinking about it. So this is the microbiome. The leaky gut concept is looked down at, right? I mean, I don't know how to say it.
Looked down upon?
Upon by official medicine because it presumes that in people who have an unhealthy gut, and we'll come to that in a second, the spaces between cells that line our digestive tract widen, and then microparticles and certain things and certain bacteria can, in quotes, leak, end of quote, into our bloodstream.
Gross.
This is a very mechanical presentation, and I grew up when I was studying medicine to know that our blood, people pay attention, it's very important, is sterile. So is our urine. When urine becomes unsterile, you have a UTI, right? Urinary tract infection, and you need to treat it. So it's abnormal. So if blood becomes unsterile, you have what is called sepsis, which is a deadly disease when bacteria and or viruses penetrate our bloodstream and basically start poisoning and killing us, and it requires very active IV antibiotic treatment. So if a person like that appears in the emergency room, let's say comes and doctors suspect that there is sepsis, they take first their blood in series of sterile tubes to send it away for microbiology research, right? And let them grow, so to speak, this bacteria in a special lab to see what bacteria grew and what antibiotics it's sensitive to.
Ew.
So if you, Master McMaster, or me, or anybody of our listeners, unless they are currently in a ward in the hospital being treated for sepsis, we have our blood sterile. That is a common understanding in conventional medicine. But people who propagate the leaky gut syndrome idea say that it's not the case, and because of the leakage, inflammation is created in the gut itself, right? And also through the bloodstream and lymph, all this we can discuss some other time, goes as high as to the brain and creates inflammation there. So psychobiotics are specific strains of specific bacteria that have been shown, at least in animal research, and we'll talk about it soon, to improve the way mice feel. And by extension, they say that if a human being who has a leaky gut syndrome or doesn't, or maybe does, maybe doesn't, but suffers from, let's say, depression or anxiety, takes these strains of probiotics, I'll define probiotics in a second, then they are going to feel better. So probiotics, another concept, are so-called healthy, in quotes, strains of bacteria that people who live in countries like the United States or Europe, industrially developed countries where we eat fake food and drink GMO-containing liquids, like some of us do in this room.
Rude.
No, I'm just trying to better your life. So this creates imbalance, and antibiotics just kill off the bad bacteria, right? The ones that are trying to kill us, and the good bacteria, the ones that are a part of the microbiome, this community of bacteria that are helping us to survive. So it's very difficult to find a person who doesn't know about probiotics. They are sold everywhere. So now they also sell psychobiotics. Before we started the episode, I discovered that on Amazon there are tons of different psychobiotics sold. And it's recommended even by conventional physicians after the course of antibiotics, or sometimes by other physicians during the course of antibiotics, to take probiotics to prevent the gut from being damaged. So people who are proponents of the leaky gut would tell you that if you take antibiotics, your gut begins to leak. It all started very intensely in the process of research of the mechanisms of pretty terrible diseases like Crohn's disease, which is a chronic inflammation of the gut that ends up with ulcers and bleeding. And it became a very, very large area of human activity for the last probably 25 years or so. A number of books have been introduced to the general public. For example, as recently as 2017, the book came out, The Psychobiotic Revolution, Mood, Food, and the New Science of the Gut-Brain Connection by Scott Anderson, who is a science journalist, John Cryan, who is a microbiome expert, and Ted Dinnan, who is a psychiatry expert. And they discuss the discovery of psychobiotics and say that these bacteria produce and deliver neuroactive substances which act on the gut-brain axis and in some instances may work as an antidepressant. I can tell you that it became such a huge topic that there have been numerous presentations already at the American Psychiatric Association.
Mm-hmm.
So people are constantly looking to improve the outcome of treatment of people with emotional issues, right? Because as we all know, medications are not perfect. They have side effects, and people don't like taking medications.
Sure.
And besides, I can tell you firsthand that I have a population of patients who've been to many psychiatrists, including myself, and we are still working on trying to figure out how to make their depression better. I'm not even talking about go away, including people who've been to TMS, transcranial magnetic stimulation, and didn't do anything, and did all different kinds of things.
Yep.
So, of course, it's a very good idea that there is a conversation. It still remains to be seen whether there is an intestinal permeability, the leaky gut, is it real or not, whether foreign substances can enter our gut or not, because as I said, as a doctor, I can't appreciate it. I don't believe it, to be honest with you. But of course, I know a number of people who have very unhealthy digestion. They suffer, and they have bloating, they have diarrhea, they have constipation, and some of them, when they start taking certain probiotics and certain supplements, feel significantly better. And yes, they also feel emotionally better. I mean, if you are bloated all the time and have indigestion, why would you feel good?
Yeah. So should we talk about kind of like the basic idea for why people think that the gut is the second brain?
Well, they think that the gut is a second brain for kind of like, in my opinion, silly reasons. So yes, there are 500 million about neurons that create, one can say, a mesh-like network that surrounds our entire GI system. I mean, we have tons of nerve endings in our mouth, and we have tons of nerves that regulate our digestion. Naturally, they also produce serotonin. Actually, fun fact, some people claim that up to 90% of serotonin is produced in our gut.
I've heard something
And that's
like
why
that.
they claim that it's a second brain. But listen, I mean, I spoke about it a million times. I'll say it again and again. Yes, we have neurotransmitters. They are instrumental, the way we understand it today, into helping neurons talk to each other. But at any given moment, in any part of the brain, there could be more or less of one of multiple neurotransmitters. It's not only serotonin. But they say it because people with Crohn's disease, GERD, which stands for gastroesophageal reflux disease, so it's like a heartburn, a chronic heartburn, ulcerative colitis, irritable bowel syndrome, IBS, do have anxiety and depression, right? But whether it's causation or correlation, as Master McMaster likes to say, that remains to be seen. For example, 61% of people with IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, also have a bona fide anxiety disorder. But I can tell you that a large number of people, I think something like 20% of people who underwent, they call it barometric surgery, meaning put a sleeve on their stomach to lose weight, develop alcohol dependence. And we don't know whether it's causation or correlation. It's kind of weird.
Sure.
So it used to be thought that high stress, right, can cause stomach problems. And this idea is a part of psychosomatic medicine, which is very highly developed. And it says that certain diseases that we have, including chronic pain, can be a result of internal emotional issues that sometimes people don't realize. What gut-brain axis tells us, it basically turns the tables on us and says, look, it could be that the problems in your gut can be causing you to become anxious.
Right, instead of the problems in your gut being a symptom of your anxiety or stress.
It could be in some people. So what I would like to offer our listeners, and you, Master McMaster, is the idea that both of these things are accurate. So in some people, the primary cause is what happens in their subconscious. And in some people, the primary cause is what happens in their gut. And what came first, the egg or the chicken?
Yes.
Or the chicken and the egg?
The chicken or the egg.
Yes. We still don't know. So it's all connected. And if you ask me, are you asking me?
Yes. Everyone's asking you.
Well, you'll be surprised. I'm of the opinion that everything is connected, and it's always a good idea to provide our clients and just for people to have a comprehensive data-driven assessment, meaning to see what's going on and address it on all the ends. I mean, allegedly there are two, but there are many, many aspects that can work to make a person better. I'll give you an ultimate example. For example, what if somebody is depressed and anxious because they have pimples? I mean, it's possible. As a teenager, I had pimples. I actually didn't care that much, but terrible pimples. But I know a number of male and female individuals who were depressed and upset and anxious about it. So if you treat the pimples, a person will be more social, right? Will be less anxious, and probably depression will go away because it was caused by the way they look. Are they super sensitive to their looks? Yes, they are, but let's help them to feel better, right? So the same is true about the gut health. If your gut is not producing all the nutrients that your brain needs, right? But one of the things I have to tell you, if there are not enough nutrients, you'll die. This is a very important concept. We in our modern Western society have to deal with abundance, right? We have too much, which is damaging us.
Right.
So I wouldn't be afraid that you are not getting enough nutrients. But research was conducted and is being conducted. And the vagus nerve, which is the largest probably nerve that we have.
Vagus nerve,
which goes, one would say, from our body to our brain. One would say from our brain to our body.
Okay.
It ends up or begins in the stem of our brain, but gets connected to different parts of our body. And there is a vagal connection, meaning from the center to the periphery and from the periphery back to the center. That's how our body is designed. Mm-hmm. So the value of the vagus nerve in this leaky gut thing is like they overvalue it. All the nervous system is very complicated. Everything is interconnected. So I doubt that we have a second brain. I hope some of us did. But, you know, our gut feels, right? You have a gut feeling. Have you ever had a gut feeling?
Yeah.
The butterflies.
Butterflies, or like some people talk about getting like a rock in their stomach when they feel like something bad is going to happen.
Exactly. So it's a very good idea to say that there is a reciprocal connection. So, but there have been studies. One of the pioneering studies that the authors felt proved that gut bacteria could affect behavioral responses was conducted in 2011 by, I'm going to murder this name, Przemysl Bursik, and at, you'll be surprised, McMaster University.
Haha, yes.
So Bursik and his team experimented with fecal transplants. And it's exactly what it sounds like.
Oh, so
right?
gross.
So between mice that were genetically bred to be timid and anxious and mice genetically bred to be bold and exploratory. And it turns out that if you take, you know what, a fecal matter from the gut of the bold and exploratory mouse and give it to the timid one, the timid becomes less timid and less anxious.
What exactly is a fecal transplant supposed to do?
I wish I knew. I mean, allegedly, the bold and exploratory mice has a different content of bacteria. That's the whole idea.
Right.
So, as you probably know, and if you want to talk about it, I'll be very happy to give you the arena. There have been some publications about how fecal transplants can potentially affect autism. Remember we spoke about it?
I have heard this. I am skeptical.
Right.
But I've heard it.
Then people talk about tryptophan-serotonin connection. So tryptophan is one of the essential amino acids.
Comes from turkey, right?
Right. So essential means this. There are many amino acids. Some of them our body can make out of food itself. So for example, if you don't eat a certain amino acid, your body will synthesize it. Essential amino acids cannot be synthesized by our body. They need to be consumed. And some people claim that, for example, vegans especially do suffer because their food does not provide them with some of the essential amino acids. It's probably inaccurate, and if you eat a variety of things, you're probably fine.
Right.
But tryptophan is one of them, and it's a precursor, meaning the thing from which serotonin is made. And the brain itself cannot make serotonin, and the brain itself, cannot make tryptophan, so it needs a constant influx of tryptophan from the gut.
Needs the building blocks.
Right. So one animal study at least showed that stomach microbe, which is called Bifidobacteria infantis, significantly increase the plasma level of tryptophan. So if you don't have enough bifida, it's not good for you. So maybe next time you go shopping and you buy, let's say, yogurt, you can see if you read the label that a lot of expensive, good quality yogurts tell you that they have Bacterium bifidum because they want you to know that they are helping you with your tryptophan, people.
Yeah.
So another important thing that we recently spoke about is GABA, gamma-aminobutyric acid, that makes people less anxious. So in another study in 2018, that genetically anxious mice, in which the genetically anxious mice was fed broth with Lactobacillus rhamnosus, were more exploratory. So L. rhamnosus, if you pay attention to the content of either your probiotics or some expensive, high quality, don't have to be expensive, yogurts, you'll see that they contain this. And it's claimed that GABA is increased as a result. GABA is kind of like, by the way it acts on our amygdala, my favorite place, right? It's kind of similar to Xanax.
Quick note, I asked the internet different sources of tryptophan in food.
Right.
Here's a quick list. Dried egg whites,
Okay.
spirulina,
Right.
which is vegan,
Vegan.
cod, soybeans, raw.
Soybeans is vegan.
Yep, Parmesan sesame seeds,
Sesame seeds is vegan. Parmesan, no.
cheddar cheese. That explains why I love cheddar cheese so much.
Right.
I'm kidding. Sunflower seeds, and then like pork, chicken, turkey, beef, oats,
Okay.
salmon,
Okay.
and then, you know, like chickpeas, wheat flour, baking chocolate,
So hummus,
quinoa, potatoes, tamarind, banana.
French fries.
Those last ones, those are like on the lower
Right.
end, but, you know, there's something there.
Yeah. So some studies actually showed that there are some gut bacteria that secrete GABA.
Really?
So hence people keep claiming that we have a second brain. But brain doesn't secrete anything itself, right? Just a few things.
Well, so then the idea there, right, is like that if I have anxiety or something, if I can affect GABA production
Right.
in my gut somehow, then I don't need to affect it in my brain by taking.
Yeah, but I have a couple of secrets for you.
But that's like the main idea, but like
Right.
the second brain.
Yeah. So before I reveal all the secrets, I have to tell you that also it's claimed that several strains of Bifidobacterium and Lactobacillus bacteria we just mentioned also have been shown to decrease cortisol and norepinephrine levels in mice, of course. And in some self-reported anxiety studies in humans, people who took them say that it makes them feel less anxious. I don't know how reliable that is. So the secret is this. There is a blood-brain barrier. It's a combination, a very sophisticated combination of the lining of the small blood vessels that come to the brain and cells inside of the brain that constantly monitor what can and cannot come in. So it's very possible, and I'm not here to propagate pizza consumption here, right? Because it makes you fat, right?
Yes, we are.
Yeah. It's our secret mission. So it's been shown that stuff that our gut produces sometimes goes into the brain, like the stuff that is made out of pizza, right? And some it doesn't. And the studies are extremely complex. People, we need to understand that there are only three ways to see whether something goes into the organ. A, to kill a subject which contains this organ, like they kill mice, right, or frogs, and then analyze it, which is unacceptable for humans, right? We don't want to kill anybody here. We want everybody to be alive and doing well. Another way to do it is to attach a marker to the substance, like GABA produced by the bacteria, and then trace it to the organ. This is very expensive. And the marker frequently should be radioactive or at least perceivable by the MRI, no radioactivity.
Is that what PET scans do?
PET scans also do that. It's all expensive, very uncomfortable for the client place to be. And the other thing is to insert a cannula, like insert something that sucks out the blood and measures it. You cannot insert it in the brain. The closer people come is to insert it to blood vessels very close to the head, Very few people consent to this kind of studies, and the studies are highly questionable. So the bottom line, I guess, of this conversation is this. It's a good idea to monitor your gut health. Leaky gut or not, of course, it's been shown again and again that probiotics are very beneficial in many ways, and maintaining a healthy gut is a very good idea. Watching what kind of stuff you ingest, even if you need to take the supplements, is also a good idea. Like, for example, magnesium has been shown to help people to sleep better and to decrease their anxiety level. I'm not going to go through the entire laundry list. So I'm personally very happy that it's been discussed. And, I told you during the prep time that in Russia we have a saying coined by two famous writers, that a specialist is similar to an abscess on the face. It's one-sided, the abscess blows up your face on one side and inflamed. So of course somebody, like for example, I'm very excited about brain health, so anything you tell me, I'm going to start talking about the brain. We both like cats. You love them, right? So you would be very happy to go on about cats forever, right?
Because I would.
Right, or pizza.
Or pizza.
So it's probably a little bit too much what we read and what we are fed on the internet every day, but it does have a grain of truth in it. And I personally have difficulties believing that fecal transplants can cure children with autistic disorder.
I have
just because
doubts about that
because I
too.
had personal experience with some clients, and I can tell you that there have been cases that I observed when the first child is born autistic, and parents didn't do anything special. So then they decide to conceive the next child, and for a year, literally, I'm telling you a real story, they watch what they eat. They eat very healthy. They take all the supplements. They don't have alcohol, both of them. They take rest. I mean, they live a perfect life. They conceive in a very loving environment. And through the pregnancy, everything is perfect. And then she delivers naturally, even a more autistic child. So it's very complicated. We cannot just make things so simple. Like you take extra doses of vitamin D, I'm quoting some authors, and autism is going to go away. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, or you stop vaccinating your children and autism is going to go away.
Well, vaccination is a topic that does not belong to formally to brain health, but maybe we should have
Some
this
people
topic.
think it does.
So then let's have a discussion. I know a very good person to invite here, Dr. Larry Palevsky. He's right. He's a holistic pediatrician. Before we end, is there anything else, Master McMaster, you would like us to say to the world that contains the brains of the internet?
So, I mean, I too am skeptical about the extent to which your gut flora can directly impact any kind of mental health issue. But I get the connection. People have theorized it about it for a while. There's obviously like a feeling connection between like your mind and your physical state, what's going on in your stomach, and there's certainly like a direct impact because that's like one of the biggest activities going on in your body at all times, right?
Yes.
Digestion.
Right.
And when you feel anxious or like when something's off, like you feel anxious or you're depressed, like those things are going to be the first to like freeze up or be impacted because your body's out of whack.
In some people it's going to be the feeling in the gut. In some people, they'll feel it in the heart. When I interview people with anxiety, I always ask them, where do you feel your anxiety?
Right.
Some people say I have the runs, meaning diarrhea. Some people will say my heart starts beating very fast, and I feel palpitations. Some say that they feel that their neck is very tight, and there is a lack of air. Some people say that they have a profound feeling of derealization, like as if things are unreal about them. I even met people who have out-of-body experiences when they're extremely anxious. So it's really a result of a makeup of a human body.
Right. Yeah, and that's what I think is important and like useful about this kind of research is that, like you said, it does bring to the fore the idea that everything is connected.
Yes.
That the brain is not just like an isolated organ. Everything that's going on in the body affects it and vice versa.
Right.
Maybe not to the extent that we think it does, but I mean, it's all connected, right?
Yes, it is connected. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, another thing that this does encourage is being very careful with what you eat. It really pushes that idea that, like, you are what you eat. And I think for that kind of thing, like, that idea certainly can't hurt anyone.
No, it can always only help.
It's like anything to encourage people to eat healthier, because it really does affect the rest of your body and your brain, you know, whether it be through producing neurotransmitters in your gut or just, you know, contributing to a good balance of like vitamins and proteins and nutrients that your body needs to function well. You know, it's always a good thing to watch out for.
Absolutely. 100%. So before we end this, I would like to send our listeners to the episode in which we discussed the effect of physical activities on the brain. So there was a study that Master McMaster mentioned about the size of the hippocampus in children who exercise and who didn't.
Right.
I was very skeptical about the study. It was edited out intentionally by us because I really wanted to read the study. So I did read the entire study, and I have to tell you, it's very impressive. So I don't know what kind of parents they found who consented for 28 children in the control group and 21 children in the research group, in the active group, to go through the MRI study. So apparently the number of boys and girls was also kind of equal, and it was a statistically significant difference between the two groups.
Oh, really?
So the study was designed very well, and I really appreciate that Master McMaster mentioned it. And I appreciate the fact that I was able to get the paper and read it with my critical attitude. I have to say that this is the only study available. I don't know what to make out of it, because hippocampus now is also kind of like a fade. Everything now is a fade because we are still confused about how things work. Exactly, we are getting there.
Yeah, slowly but surely.
And hopefully with his Neuralink, probably Elon Musk will help us. I just watched his interview on the YouTube after he successfully launched this spaceship. He gets things done. So we'll see.
Yeah.
Until then, please keep your brains open to all the good food that you can consume. Don't forget about pizza.
Yes, please keep your guts open to the glory of pizza, but really do whatever's healthiest for you. But don't put all of your eggs in one gut basket brain thing.
Right. And of course, in all seriousness, we didn't talk about gluten sensitivity in this program, but if we manage to convince Larry Palevsky to come and talk to us about vaccination, we'll wind up talking to him about gluten and milk. And all these things also are very valid. And of course, you understand we are joking about pizza. Maybe you are allergic to pizza. Maybe you are gluten sensitive.
Sorry about you.
Yeah, but keep your brains open and healthy. Have fun.
Goodbye, Earthlings. Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Brainstorm 9000. If you like us, love us, or marginally tolerate us, hey, go ahead and subscribe, rate, and give us a review on iTunes or Stitcher or wherever the hell you listen to your podcasts.